Welcome on in. This is the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast for NFL Week 18. It is January 5th. John McKechnie and Mario Puig breaking down the entire last week of the regular season slate. Some fantasy championships still to be decided. Some playoff seedings still to be decided as well. We'll get into all that and more here. Let's start the show. Welcome on in. This is the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, John McKechnie. That is Mario Puig. This podcast presented to you by our friends over at No House Advantage. Mario, it is Week 18. There's a lot to be decided this week. Fantasy matchups, playoff seedings, all that good stuff and more. There's no Thursday night game this week, but we got a couple of Saturday games in addition to a pretty full slate on Sunday, and of course, no Monday night football as well. So we got a really jam-packed weekend of football ahead of us here. Let's kick things off with the first game. We got the Chiefs and the Raiders. The Chiefs obviously vying for that number one seed in the AFC, which is all the more important under the current playoff structure where there's only one team getting a bye. They are 9.5-point favorites against the Las Vegas Raiders, and that's that game to be played in Vegas. Mario, we laughed about the prospect of Jared Stidham doing anything last week, and frankly, I don't know if there's crow to be eaten necessarily, and if anything, I stand by / want to double down on the opinion that Jared Stidham is bad, but he had a good game last week.
Yeah, he had a good game. I mean, it was a good job by him. Not trying to take away credit for how well he did, but good luck with sticking with that one. I mean, if they want to really test their luck with Jarrett Stidham a whole lot more, I'll still confidently put down money on it's going to go bad. It's not going to go good. We saw him play enough at Baylor and Auburn. It's not like it's a mystery as to who this guy is, unless he underwent some kind of physical transformation that no other quarterback has otherwise. It's just another case of guy had a pretty good 2.5 quarters, and now time's up.
Yeah, I'm thinking so as well. And Vegas doesn't seem to be particularly buying Stidham, really making this Raiders team viable. The Raiders are 9.5-point dogs at home in this one. From a fantasy lens, with stakes being on the table there for the Chiefs, do you still feel good about, the likes of Patrick Mahomes and everyone playing all 4 quarters and with that, starting all those guys confidently?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's a little tough to guess where the numbers are actually going to go in this offense, especially when they don't really have a defined second pass catcher. I know it's Juju Smith-Schuster that we go with if we have to, but it's like Kadarius Toney drawing 4 targets on 19 snaps. It's like he might be a 19 snap player. He might only be a 1 out of every 3 snaps player, but he's going to draw more targets than a player usually in that role. And it's last week it came at Juju's expense. Maybe there was a Surtain related reason for that too. But yeah, it's other than Kelsey, it's like I just don't know what there is to assume here. The whole offense pretty much just runs as like an extension of Mahomes. It's like he's just taking these players who aren't particularly good in a lot of cases and just making their numbers good. It's like the defense can't defend every threat that Mahomes can pose, and so there's always just like some guy hanging around in some part of the field, probably not getting covered that closely, and Mahomes finds him eventually, and it doesn't matter who that player is. If they're in that spot, they get the ball in that situation. So, it's like Jerick McKinnon. To be fair, he's actually doing yardage with his snaps now. He went about 1.5 years doing about a yard per snap, which is just incredibly bad. And even now, the yardage that he's getting is no more meaningful than the yardage that Darrell Williams got last year. But turning those snaps into actual yardage is, a new thing and maybe even a new element. But I think it's going to probably draw more defensive attention in the game planning eventually. Like eventually, after being 1.5 years of saying just let McKinnon go. We got to deal with these other things. If he catches it, it's not a big deal. And like maybe they're going to actually crash down on that look, and maybe there's going to be something more, I don't know, over the middle or something that's available. They don't have the personnel to go downfield except with Valdez-Scantling. So yeah, it's like they can express like they can't reach that many parts of the field with their pass catcher personnel, but it's like Mahomes kind of just bends the field to his liking anyway, and on an unpredictable basis will get points somehow.
Yeah, I think so as well. This could be a week where we see a real random cast of characters getting into the end zone for the Chiefs. Like it could be a Noah Gray week, that type of thing. So
Jody Fortson, whatever, always somebody.
You name it, they probably have a decent chance to score if they're on the field with Mahomes. And then last thing I want to touch on, this more of like a longer view for the Raiders. What do you see happening with Carr and with Jacobs?
They're gone. Yeah, I don't know what they think they're doing with Davante Adams either. I mean, it sure seems that even if McDaniels wanted to bench Carr, whatever thinking went into that does not seem in step with whatever thinking went into the Davante Adams trade. Slash, you would think Davante Adams would have been a little less enthusiastic to join up with them if he knew it was going to be this weird little exercise where McDaniels kind of alienates and runs out everybody who's there already and replaces them with worse versions of the player before. Who knows how it'll go? Maybe this is maybe the only thing holding back Josh McDaniels all this time was not having a Jarrett Stidham at the helm. Maybe they're going somewhere good. But Derek Carr will not be with them to go wherever that is. And I feel like Jacobs already said, like, I guess they could franchise tag him. They probably will, but he seems like he's just about ready to get out of there.
Yeah, I think so too. He's had an incredible year. I don't really know what I'll do with him as far as redraft for next year. Like, where do you expect him? I guess landing spot pending. Where do you think his ADP ends up? Could it be like a early second, late first type of guy?
That's tough for me to think through. I wouldn't be surprised if the ADP in the first I don't know, like 15 picks might be pretty fluid. Like other than like maybe Justin Jefferson and like Tyreek Hill, Jamar Chase, Diggs. Like those guys seem like they're gonna go higher than they did last year, this year, and Jacobs with numbers like those would normally be like is he the top overall non Justin Jefferson, non Tyreek Hill scorer this year? That seems like that sounds right.
I believe so. I'll check on that real quick.
Eckler might be ahead of him. But other than that, it's like Jacobs is putting up production this year that would be justifiable for a first overall pick. So right. I don't know how people are going to handle that. Like some mathematical models might be quick to like Jacobs just because, I mean, he did a legitimately great job this year. Pass catching 2, 3 down, whatever, short yardage. So workhorse profile, high efficiency. You can imagine some people being willing to pay a pretty high dollar for him. I'm happy to see him have the season that he did, especially being the kind of running back that he is. Like, I like to grind the axe over, running backs in the first round, running backs that are workhorse running backs who are valued on the market. That I'm glad to see Jacobs doing well in those things because I normally he's the kind of guy who gets a lot of flack from some of my least favorite people. But with that said, I also think he's probably a fade in most cases next year because he's never produced like this before, and it seems like it's a pretty direct consequence of Davante Adams being there and the kind of defensive alignments that Davante Adams dictates. So basically, there's openings that Jacobs is benefiting from this year that didn't exist before Adams got there, and if they're both with the Raiders still, that's better than Davante not being on the offense. But with Jarrett Stidham at quarterback, like there is going to be a pinch at some point, and if Davante Adams starts to lose any of his utility, whatever opened up for Jacobs before could kind of get swallowed up again, and he might turn into more like the guy that he was before this year, which was still quite good. He was still underrated. It was always ridiculous that he was going as late in drafts as he did this year, but he's more like maybe an above average starting running back. Like he's some version of good and good enough, but whether he's actually above average among starters, that I don't see as much evidence for. I do think most years he's more like a 4.3, 4.5 yards per carry kind of player, rather than this year when he's just raking like crazy.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about 5 yards a carry on in some amount of volume. I mean, 323 carries thus far this season. He's got 12 touchdowns, which matches his previous career high that he got in 15 games back in 2020. So, yeah, I mean, this year definitely stands as a bit of an outlier relative to
Injuries
his
too.
career
He's been
norms.
playing through them, but he's got a long history of getting hurt.
He does, and this was more of a topic years ago when workhorses were a little bit more common, but in fantasy football circles, maybe like the proto analytics type of era, people would always be leery of guys coming off of 300 carry seasons.
Yeah, it's understandable. I mean, it's almost an inhumane kind of physical workload to put on somebody. Derrick Henry aside, it seems like
Yeah,
he's just kind of a
he's
he doesn't
inhuman.
actually
So
he doesn't take actual hits. Like guys just kind of slowly get in his way. Whereas like other people, when they get they get 300 plus carries, it's like somebody bigger than them is tackling them usually, or oftentimes anyway. So yeah, I particularly when he's been like on the injury report probably like 4/5 of the time the past like 3 years. It's he's played the vast majority of the time, but there's usually like one or two games where he can't go, and then there's games like this year or situations like this year where he's playing hurt for like 6 weeks with whatever that was, and he gets the hand injury. Not that the hand injury was a freak thing, but it's just speaks to like how he's always like playing through injury, which is that once good that he's tough and able to produce while less than 100%. But it also means like when his luck gets a little worse, I don't know. I worry about when it goes from nagging injuries to constantly to like nagging injuries constantly, and the kind of injuries that keep him out of a game start to happen more often than they did in his first 5 years.
right, exactly. So time is particularly tough on running backs, and him coming off of this type of year, but this type of workload. Yeah, I'll be probably a little bit leery to approach him where his ADP projects to be next year. Let's zip on over to our next game Saturday night. We got the Titans and the Jags. The Jags 6-point favorites in this one at home. Obviously, the AFC South is on the line here, and the Titans are rolling into it in less than ideal circumstances. And the Jags, for their own part, are red hot right now.
Right. It's going to be interesting though. I mean, the Titans are getting a lot back. They're getting a lot back. A lot of guys, including some guys who weren't just out last week but have been out for a while before that. Like not so much Christian Fulton. He's whatever. He's like a good enough kind of corner. He doesn't really change a whole lot. But Jeffrey Simmons has been practicing all week. I guess we'll see what he does today. I guess it's possible that they do one of those like maintenance day things today. But if he practices today, I believe that'll be the first time he practiced an entire week. I don't know, in like a couple months or something like that. Amani Hooker looks like he's going to be back. He had been getting really good results as he's one of their safeties and he's their main slot corner when they go into nickel or dime. So that's a big upgrade there. That's probably who's going to be on Christian Kirk, who the Jaguars kind of need to get going to project safely for a win here, and especially for the cover here. So that Jeff Simmons, Danico Autry, I don't remember the last time that guy played. It's been like 3 months since he's played. He might be the most underrated, at least defensive player in the league. Like Danico Autry such a good player, and there's no one like him, and so he's not the kind of guy that the Titans could have replaced while he was out. So getting all that back, it's going to be tough on the Jaguars offense, and I know Josh Dobbs is awful. It's I mean as a starting quarterback as a backup or whatever. I'm sure he's fine. But this is not the kind of setting that when you sign Josh Dobbs as your backup, you imagine him stepping up and saving the day. You're more so thinking like, oh, we're probably toast if that happens. And conventionally, yes, but there's the variable factor. Trevor Lawrence is still a young player. He's still a young quarterback who doesn't have truly a lot of help. He's a young quarterback who's driving their success. He's not being coddled toward it. Like he's not being carried like another. He's not being carried like a Jared Goff kind of player needs to be carried. So that means at once it's good that he's that level of a talent, of course, but I feel like it also means that at his current experience and age level, there's the risk for letdown, especially against a playoff tested team, a playoff tested coach. Peterson is, of course, playoff tested, but not with the Jaguars. So Titans are really dangerous. I don't know what to call the spread. It's like maybe it's one of those things that if the Titans cover, they win for some reason. Like maybe there's no way to have it that the Jags win, but the Titans cover. I don't know what might all go into that, but I'm worried for the Titan for the Texans for the Jaguars, even though the Titans have this incredible handicap at quarterback.
So what's interesting to me, I'm looking at the splits over on VSiN. 63% of the money I bet on the spread this week for this game is on the Titans. I was surprised to see that.
That's for the spread.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I'd be interested to see what some of the the money line where you pick straight up.
Yeah, that is 75% in favor of the Jags. So the public seems to expect this one to be close, but the Jaguars win.
Interesting. Yeah, so I'm looking at covers, and I don't know what the exact metrics they're listing here are, but it's showing 63% on the Jaguars. I assume I guess I don't know whether that's for the spread or not, but they're showing the spread got from 7 to 6. So even though there's more volume on the Jaguars, it appears like some greater sum of money has. Am I getting that backwards there? It's if the Jags so that means there's like outsized bets on the Titans, right? Because the Jags number would go to like -8 if there's like over heavy on that. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a little concerning. I always hate it when I see those outsized bets going toward the counterintuitive pick because you'd think like, well, if there's people who make so much money off of this that they can make a living, they must make a lot of counterintuitive picks for the rest of us who go with the wrong intuitive pick, give them their winnings more or less. And this is maybe a case like that. And the playoff environment thing is huge. I mean, Trevor Lawrence, he might be up for it anyway. There are every so often there's that category of player where they are not affected that much by the circumstances and maybe even get a little better the higher the stakes get.
Yeah, I mean
Lawrence
he burned Alabama to the ground as a true freshman.
Right. So that also applies at the college level. It's like you don't normally look at a freshman quarterback on an otherwise great team and otherwise a team that isn't playoff tested, and then see Trevor Lawrence beat an institution like Alabama as a true freshman. It's like, that doesn't guarantee anything for the NFL. Obviously, he struggled his rookie year, but it might mean that Lawrence is more likely than just about any other, prospect that could have been in his position to transcend or step up in circumstances like these rather than lose something in the circumstances, because normally it's like if you're not playoff tested, you kind of are just like a little bit off that day, or like the other team taps into something that you just didn't realize you needed and you don't have it yet, and you maybe don't even know what it is yet, and you gotta lose to figure it out. But Lawrence, I mean, because of the Dobbs factor, I do take the Jags. I want to pick the Titans to cover, even though I'm kind of worried that it's like one of those things that I don't know, maybe like the Titans don't go for enough field goals for it to make sense. Like maybe it needs to be Jags win and Jags cover, or Titans cover and win. I don't know, but I'm going to hedge best as I can and say Jags win, but Titans cover.
Okay, and then last thing, Travis Etienne has a big week last week, but it was against the Texans. Can we expect him to continue that here? Was that the start of him unlocking his potential?
He, I think, is generally going to have a low, what would you call it, like standard deviation or something in this game, and like low, uh, generally low returns. I don't know how the Titans defense is going to give him space. I mean, their personnel is good enough at run defense, and they're sound enough at it as a scheme that they can probably take care of Etienne for the most part, and especially if they can contain him anyway. They can make sure they don't leave any gaps open, and they don't really need to like blitz to get at him. It's like you just got to cover your gaps with Etienne, and especially since the Jags' offensive line doesn't push anybody around, especially because the Titans don't get pushed around. You would worry about Etienne just kind of having nowhere to go, and I definitely worry about that. I've hated the way they've used him pretty much all year. Either they weren't using him enough early in the year, or they're using him too much lately, and specifically sending him into the teeth of the defense too many times. Like if you're Doug Peterson, I love you, Doug, but you can't send Etienne straight at Jeff Simmons 15 times. That's insane. Like if you were trying to kill him, that's what you would do. You would say like halfback dive right at whatever Jeff Simmons' number is. Like, and they've done stuff like that over and over in a lot of these games. Like you got to get him off tackle. You got to use him more like Aaron Jones, Alvin Kamara, whatever, like somebody like that. You're not making a 20 carry grinder out of ETN. You're just going to get him hurt. So I wish they would do something differently here. I barely want to even see them giving ETN the ball. Like if there's running to, I don't think they should be running in this game. They should just be throwing. ETN should run it like 12 times. Pretty much everything else should be passes, and use a bunch of screens to ETN, something like that you haven't maybe put on tape. If you got to get them touches, get them touches on manufactured novel play designs. Don't expect them to break tackles between the tackles. But I will say, in the unlikely event that the Titans do fail a gap assignment, then yes, ETN can break through that. It's like a little bit of that thing with Jonathan Taylor types where it's like, yeah, he can go 20 carries with 70 yards, but if the defense makes a mistake, he takes it every time. So there is a high cost to having even a little bad luck against him if you're the Titans.
Yeah, so that's important to factor in. I have one league in which I'm still alive. I think I'll start ETN even still, but yeah, I'm not expecting the same kind of week that he had a week ago.
Yeah, he's gonna need the big play, or he's gonna need short touchdowns, because if he gets 15 carries, it's probably gonna be something like 40 yards. He needs one carry of 40 plus yards to get to 80.
And then I guess last element on this game also, Derrick Henry off the injury report. How big is that in helping this Titans offense? Especially when they have Dobbs as their quarterback.
Right, it's big, and I mean, I guess they could have done this with Willis too, and they didn't. But Dobbs is enough of an athlete that you can run some legitimate carry reps with him. Like they can run a kind of like a wishbone-y kind of thing, and if the Jags aren't ready for it, and this is absolutely something I can imagine Vrabel doing, specifically like doing a 1 week old Georgia Tech offense, where it's like no one expected it. It's kind of like how he opens games with like that. A couple times there's like a fake punt or something like that. Like Vrabel kind of just does tricks in settings like these. So I think we should at the very least expect a couple trick plays, and maybe even kind of like a trick offense where it's Dobbs throws it like 10 times and runs at 15, and Henry runs at 25, and they have 3 or 4 drives with 12 plus plays, something like that, and they want to reduce it. They want to reduce the game to like a painful, tiring affair for the Jaguars, where they shorten the game, beat up the Jaguars, make them more likely to make a mistake, and then sit on the ball so that one mistake is enough to get the win. And I think they can do it. I mean, I trust Trevor Lawrence, but he's still even through all this, he has been playing 10 on 11. Marvin Jones is a complete zero. Zay Jones is overexposed as a wide receiver too. Christian Kirk, I mean, some of it was dropped passes, some of it is rolled coverages his way. But there's points where you can imagine the Jaguars offense just kind of failing to get anybody open, and then they don't have the power element, they don't have the power advantage on the ground. So if Lawrence isn't good, like if he doesn't carry the Jaguars, they are in a lot of trouble. Like they can't save themselves if he has a slightly bad game.
Yeah, I sat down for this podcast expecting to come out of it feeling like, oh yeah, the Jags are going to take care of business. But even with how rough the last 6 weeks have been for Tennessee, the Vrabel factor and a healthy Derrick Henry, they have a puncher's chance. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I'm still taking the Jags, but it's like it's one of those games I don't want to have to pick and be on the hook for.
Yeah, for our guy Nick Whalen, hoping that the teal curtain rises up.
Is that how we don't want it to stay down and block the other team?
I don't really. I'm not really sure where I was going with that metaphor. I just always thought the teal curtain was funny.
Oh, it is. Yeah, it's especially now when their defense sucks. You have to call it the teal
Yeah.
curtain.
Oh boy. But yes, Nick, we're rooting for you on Saturday night. Before we get on to the Sunday slate, got a message from our friends over at Blue Wire. All right, on to Sunday. Let's kick things off. Bucks, Falcons. Bucks able to clinch the NFC South last week. Not really much of an accomplishment, as we've come to find, especially this year. But
they're good again, John. But I was just when I called touchdown Tim over, he had to go get those like orphan entrails and burn them on the pentagram on the floor. And what do you know? He's back. He couldn't do it a full 18-game season. He was just waiting for the playoffs this year. Maybe that subscription's a cheaper plan. I don't know his reasons. But that was discouraging for me. That was the most annoying thing almost of that slate was like, why is touchdown Tom back again? He was playing dead for 16 weeks, and now he just all of a sudden is like, actually, I think I'm gunning it out again. 200 yards, Mike Evans is back. Like after 4 months of watching Mike Evans get open deep and have an underthrown ball fall to the dirt, nowhere near him, or just at his feet. Like all of a sudden, 200 yards, Mike Evans is back, and it sucks, John. I really hope that was just a 1 week thing, because if touchdown Tom is throwing 40-yarders again, then yeah, they're probably just gonna win the Super Bowl, whatever his ninth or whatever that would be.
Oh, I'm terrified at that prospect. The NFC, I really like these Eagles and 49ers teams, but I don't know if they can overcome the evil that would be Tom Brady tapping back in. Oh.
Yeah, you can't. I don't know. Maybe it's hubris to think that evil could ever be defeated or even delayed. Maybe we should just embrace this the most that we can.
Yeah, like Kent Brockman, we embrace our new ant overlords.
Oh, can't eat ants though. There's too much acid in those. You gotta, or I guess we're getting eaten by the ants. Never mind. I don't know. Maybe he's slipped on the no tomato rule during the season. Maybe that was it. He was like going through divorce. He's like, I'll have a little tomato for an indulgent treat, and then his game just went to hell.
He had some lasagna in like September, and
yeah,
it ruined his whole season. And then on the Falcons side of things, what have you seen from this offense since Ritter took over, and what kind of applications do we see for this week, and maybe a little bit sneak peek into next year?
I don't know, man. I mean, it was weird how all year they didn't use Cordarrelle Patterson as a pass catcher the way they did last year until last week, and I don't know what changed. It's like even when Kyle Pitts got hurt, that didn't get added to the offense again. It wasn't like they deleted Cordarrelle's routes to make room for Pitts because Pitts got hurt, and still they were doing this thing where Cordarrelle gets like 10 carries in one catch a game, whereas last year he was pretty much raking as a pass catcher, including with strong peripheral, stable peripherals that indicated like that should be another thing that should work in 2022 also, and then they just didn't do it, and then they do it last week, and I guess Drake London's production dried up. That was one difference from the prior 3-4 games. But at this point, I can't tell what Arthur Smith is trying to do, and I don't know if he knows either. It's kind of weird. So yeah, they're they're going to put something on the field in this game, obviously, but I don't know how much there is to draw from it to figure out what might happen next year with Ritter or anything else, any other structural detail of the offense. It's just it's hard for me to tell, but I think Ritter, he was encouraging last week for the most part. It was just like he's not particularly young as a prospect. Like him and Malik Willis, part of why they're kind of problematic as projects is they are not 21 years old. They're like 23 something. So when you're that old, that age, and you're still too skinny like Ritter is, it's just and you have rough games like he did the couple weeks before. It's like it's not as easy to just push aside as it would have been if he were like an underclassman prospect, because you would expect an underclassman prospect to be raw and be improving, but with Ritter, you wouldn't conventionally project improvement for a player at his point in development. So I have no idea what their options might be in the draft. I have no idea what their goals might be in the draft. I don't know what Arthur Smith again thinks he's doing with that offense. So I don't know what he wants to build, and I don't know whether Ritter would be feasible for whatever that would be. So I don't know. I could see them drafting a quarterback high. I could see them going into next year and running another just like zero ambition offense like they did this year. But that seems like a dreary prospect, and one at the very least where it's like you got to move Kyle Pitts then. Like I know before it was like they were doing the most with their circumstances or whatever, but it's like you got to do better either way. So yeah, they should trade. After trading Ridley to the Jaguars, they should just trade Pitts to the Jaguars too. Like the Jaguars should trade their first rounder for Kyle Pitts this offseason, and everybody can be happy or something.
That'd be nifty. I would like that.
That would be actually completely unstoppable. So I really do hope if Based Trent is listening, buddy, just love you. I've always loved you. Please try to get that Kyle Pitts trade done if you could.
Yeah, but when you get a minute, go ahead and make that happen. I wonder if for better or for worse, the Falcons would be interested in a Will Levis type at quarterback, because I feel like he fits the Arthur Smith thing a little bit.
I guess he could.
I mean, but before this year, he had run for over 200 yards in each of his collegiate seasons. Like he's a mobile guy, and he's big, physical. I mean, 6'3", 230, like with a good arm. It could work.
Yeah, it could. And I mean, more importantly, they could decide to. That's the only thing is like, what are they thinking they're going to do? I have various opinions about what they should do, but the Terry Fontenot, what is this, year 3? No, year 2? I can't remember. Year 3.
2, 3?
Sorry, going into 3. Yeah, this one being his second. So most of these GM guys, they probably, what are they? These recent hires, they probably they're all looking out for themselves in similar ways. So they all probably subscribe to some kind of conventional wisdom about like, you got to get a quarterback by year 3. You got to draft if you're rebuilding in year 3. You got to draft a quarterback high in year 3. Something like just truisms about like what a GM must do, and maybe some of it's supported by data. Like GMs who draft a quarterback in the top 10 in their going into their third season off a losing record get re-signed, get extended on their contract at a 40% rate compared to 15% if they whatever. And so they might be like Fontenot might, if nothing else, cynically be looking at this as like, I got to draft a quarterback high so I can get people off my ass for another 18 months. Because when you draft a rookie quarterback, expectations lower and people get more patient. And whereas like if you go into it with another Mariota type scenario, people will be in week 4 like fire Smith, fire Fontenot, and with some amount of justification in that. So if Fontenot feels any heat at all, it wouldn't be surprising if he goes to draft Levis, somebody. I guess it would either be him or Richardson, I guess, but somebody like you said who could. I mean, the other thing is I don't know if Smith is fully committed to this like running quarterback thing. Like he might be open to having like a pure pocket passer and just not have the quarterback run as much, just throw more as an offense. So maybe even Bryce Young. I don't know. Stroud, etc. I don't even know. I have no idea. But if Fontenot feels any heat, he might want to take a quarterback just so people say, got to give him a little more time. He's a rookie.
No, that's a really interesting way of looking at it, and that certainly could be in play. They need so much edge
Everything.
help. I don't know if it's really available or it's going to be like, I don't think this class is particularly great there. And I think Will Anderson's probably gone by the time that they're on the clock.
Will
S-
Anderson should go first. I don't, or him or that Jalen Carter was it? It's
my
like those
guy. Yeah.
with quarterbacks like these. I mean, I better not see a quarterback go in the top two.
it's, it's going to happen, but
Ugh.
it shouldn't. But here we are. I remember being told after the Pickett draft last year that next year's class is going to be an all timer. No, no.
I can't believe someone said that. That was like a dumb thing to say back then. I was like, you mean Levis? Like that one?
Right.
The guy who threw 46% of his yardage from Wandale Robinson?
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah. And this year, obviously,
You have
not,
to say it
not
every year. You have to say it every year, no matter
you
how
do.
bad the next class is. Like next year's class is
Mhm.
pretty interesting.
So that's just the way the cookie crumbles.
But seriously, the next class is good after this one.
Yeah, we got Caleb. We got
Yeah, just
some.
Caleb. That's like the best. Caleb and Trevor alone are like the two best quarterback classes in the past like 6 years or something.
I have something in common with Caleb Williams. We both went to the same high
You're
school.
from. Oh, okay. I didn't know it was the same school.
Yeah,
That's
proud
pretty
proud of
interesting.
him. Proud of my Gonzaga Eagle for getting it done. Um, but before we move on to the next game, we got a message from our friends over at No House Advantage. No House Advantage is changing the game by offering the most dynamic fantasy sports platform available today. Play in pick 'em contests versus other people for the shot at winning big cash prizes. Download the app, choose a contest, select your player props, earn points for correct picks, and climb the leaderboard for your shot at hundreds of thousands of dollars every week. You can also test your skills versus the house and 20x your entry if you hit all your picks. Bet on up to 5 player prop over-unders or individual player matchups across every major sports league, including NFL, NBA, MLB, PGA, MMA, and NASCAR. Sign up now with promo code NHAWIRE. That's NHAWIRE at nohouseadvantage.com or download the app on the app stores to get a first deposit match up to $25. Make sure to check out No House Advantage today and experience your daily fantasy sports redefined, because it's not just how you play, but also where you play. You won't want to miss out on this. And again, that promo code, you can see it on the bottom of the screen if you're watching us on the live stream, but that's NHAWIRE, NHAWIRE. All right, onward. We've got the Bills going up against the Patriots. Bills playing at home in this one, 7-point favorites. Well, what can you even say about this one?
Yeah, it's unfortunate that there's this need to play out the season at all, but particularly it's got to be rough for the Bills, obviously, with what's going on with Hamlin, what happened in last week's game. But because the game has to be played, and because they've kind of got nowhere else to put their emotions, it's I would imagine just going to be the Bills as we've come to expect them. They're probably going to make pretty quick work of this weak overall Patriots team. I know they got some good defensive players, uh, alleged maybe some good ones on offense, but not enough to move the ball against this kind of defense. And unlike last year, like they can't even really hide Mac Jones. It's like he's not that I'm even meaning to blame Mac. I have such a complicated relationship with Mac Jones. I basically can't stand him, and I
Yep.
think he's a pretty not good quarterback. But some of the things that have gone wrong with that team this year are not his fault. But then when you see him doing the Grayson Allen stuff, it's like, yeah, well, that's okay if we if he
Yeah.
gets a little
Yeah.
unfair criticism. I guess that's not that bad of a thing. But in any case, I don't think he's particularly responsible for the failures of the Patriots offense. I'm just going to assume that Matt Patricia might have done a bad job, and Joe Judge might have done a bad job because they've done that mostly in the past. But they can't do the Buffalo game from last year where they didn't throw the ball and win. It's like that kind of scenario is off the table. It's like you're turning the ball over somehow, whether you want to or not. Obviously, you won't want to, but it's like no matter what they do, this offense can't go into a shell like the previous ones did. So if they can't go into a shell, they're leaving their neck out in an environment where they can't defend themselves. So yeah, I think the Bills maybe some initial, tough, hard hitting kind of grinded out football, but eventually they'll just kind of blow them away.
And the Patriots, they need some help, but they theoretically could still make the playoffs as the last seed. So
They'll
I mean,
show up.
yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah, I don't think it'll be enough either. Excuse me. I expect I expect the Bills to go ahead and take care of business in this one as well. Let's go ahead and move on. We got Vikings Bears. This one in Chicago. Vikings 7-point favorites. No Justin Fields for this one. So the Bears have fully embraced the tank. They're not even trying to hide it anymore. Which fair.
Yeah, weird timing on that Claypool trade. Then I don't like Ryan Poles. I think he's a huckster. Yeah, I think we got to worry about them trying to trade Fields in the offseason too, because I was just talking about Fontenot, the GMs, all reading up on literature about GMs who do this and this scenario get extended. This person, GM analytics. God, that's probably a real thing. There's probably some actual jerk who's some kind of useless consultant. Normally works for Satan, but right now they're making analytics for GM candidates, so they know which players to cut, when to cut, when to cut costs, and when to take on costs, when to take on liabilities, whatever. And no one reads more of that stuff than Poles. He's deep into the cynicism angle for it, but yeah, it's they should be building around Fields or whatever, and not that this has anything to do with this game, but I think you're going to see more reports than you would think this offseason about rumors about the Bears maybe moving Fields, and they probably won't move him, but they might, especially because the way Poles is looking at it is, well, if I trade Fields, yeah, everyone will get mad at me, but if I get a rookie quarterback on a rookie contract, a new rookie contract on a rookie quarterback, the best thing you can do is get the most important position at the lowest level of pay possible. That's the key to success. It doesn't matter if they're good or anybody else on your team is good. Just get that rookie quarterback contract, and get it the full 5 years refreshed with a Will Levis type or something. That would be amazing. And he would get a leash. They'd be like, well, yeah, of course the rookie's bad. We knew it was a rebuilding. You got, columnists in the Chicago area who want to stay friendly with Poles writing, very solemnly writing these articles about how we knew this was a rebuild. We needed someone serious to come
we
in.
could see the vision.
We needed a John Taffer type to come in and tell us where our costs were inefficient, and look us in the eye and tell us why we were bad and what we were wrong about, and we knew it would be a hard rebuild. That's if Poles is nice and sends text messages and happy birthday stuff to the columnists, which stuff like Chris Ballard does to get the media so chummy with him. And you would see them say yeah, this was a good idea actually. So yeah, I hope this is all me being paranoid, but that guy is a McKinsey slug. I can see it, and it's gonna destroy the Bears. But for this game, they're going to just get destroyed for the reasons you said. They're bad and they're tanking too.
Yeah, so the Vikings. Yeah, well,
is this Peterman? Is that who it's going to be?
Yeah, I believe so.
Just whenever you're tanking, it's just call. He's just like a fixer for giving you a high draft pick.
Yeah,
good gig.
He's the merchant of death, but for
he's that guy from The Wire who they hired just to destroy the detail.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember his name. That guy.
No, I remember you talking about. But yeah, I mean that basically is one Nathan Peterman. So we can we can unpack how fraudulent the Vikings are a little bit more once we get their playoff matchup set. But the Eagles, obviously, they can't afford to lose their game on Sunday. Just because suddenly the Vikings could be in pretty decent position there. Let's see. Let's move on over to Ravens Bengals. This one scheduled to be played at 1 o'clock on Sunday. That was up in the air a little bit. Some form of divisional crown is kind of in the works here, but a lot of it depends on what ends up happening with the final results for that Bills Bengals game on Monday. But I think either way you slice it, the Ravens are bad.
They suck.
At least if there's no Lamar Jackson, there's really no hope. And
even with Lamar, I mean, I really do think it's like Greg Roman has just been cornered, It's like his whole bit has been figured out and he just has nothing as far as an adjustment. He keeps going further in the wrong direction, if anything. And it's all predictable and it's irritating. And I'm sick of knowing that this guy is the offensive coordinator of the Ravens, or at least I wish, no offense, John, that Lamar Jackson were on another team. If Roman were the offensive coordinator. Apparently the guy is the Pope or something. He just cannot get removed from that job. There's no way to overrule Greg Roman's influence for some reason. And as long as that's the case, he's unstoppable, man. He cannot be stopped. He will ruin anything he touches. And the Ravens incidentally also have bad personnel on offense. So, running back aside.
Yeah. Dobbins has been great.
Tight end aside.
Yeah, tight end. Andrews looked really good last week, which was nice. But yeah, there's nothing else there. It's a barren wasteland on offense, and the defense isn't as good as the sum of its parts. I don't think the defensive line's particularly good, but I mean, come on.
I don't like McDonald either. I feel like he's changed something. I don't look close enough to know what he's changed, but I feel like he's changed something. Like I feel like they use more disguises or something. I feel like they were a more confusing defense to play against, and this year it's more like they're just kind of they're playing some theory out, and the theory isn't holding up. I mean, the results there's so many atypical details from previous Ravens defenses. Like I know they've been on a downward slope for a few years, but that was because the personnel fell off. Now you had like some personnel reinforcements, and it still fell off more, or at least against the pass, it kind of did. So I don't know. I'm sick of. I know John Harbaugh was the right guy for the job. I know he got them the Super Bowl, but even the right guy for the job sometimes outlasts his usefulness.
Yeah, there was the renaissance after the 2017 season where they drafted Lamar Jackson and everything like that.
Right, it almost was done already back then.
Yeah, that was about as apathetic as I've seen like the Ravens fan base and like as directionless of a team as I've seen under that franchise. Obviously, following couple of years were fun, great. One of them particularly promising, but now they seem like they're in the same spot that they were 5 years ago.
Yeah.
I don't know what the answer is, but I do. The answer as it comes to this game, the Bengals are going to smoke them.
Yeah. I mean, I hope so.
Yeah. I'm actually going to be on a flight to Los Angeles during this game, so I'm not even going to have to watch it.
Hollywood John, too good for his Ravens.
He's back, and he's worse than ever. But yeah, going to the national championship game on Monday, so getting myself out to the West Coast.
That's awesome. That's a way better thing to do than watch that game.
I think so too.
The Ravens game.
Yeah. As someone who likes the Ravens, it's like at least I get to forget about that and root for my alma mater. Actually doing something cool. Let's get on over. Texans Colts 2.5 point.
That's
favorites.
Okay. I think I'll pass. No, whatever. Somebody has to win, I guess. Zach Moss is going to run like for 80 yards on 20 carries. The Texans will. I don't know what. Maybe nothing. Maybe they'll get up to like 100 yards or so on offense, and the Colts should win in some kind of just like really depressing kind of way.
Yeah, this will be one of the more forgotten games in recent NFL history. Like no one's going to be.
Oh, you know what? This is the only reason to bring up this game is to. Oh no, John's. Hey, there, John.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, sorry. We had some fluctuation in the feed there. I didn't know if the the internet monster in your apartment had shut it down again. But it's really funny watching these legacy NFL media people trying to. They're like competing to be the most offended by Kayvon Thibodeau saying he doesn't know
No.
what Jeff Saturday is. Like Trey Wingo's like, Kayvon, he's a all pro. He's like reading off of his Wikipedia thing, the tab on the
also
right.
spell Kayvon wrong in that tweet.
Yeah, he called him Kayvon.
Yeah.
Kayvan, Kevin Biggio,
Mhm.
with a K. But yeah, I think that stuff's always really funny to watch because there's just nothing more precious than like legacy careerist media people competing to be the most offended to preserve their access. Like when they're doing this ridiculous doing Kent Brockman stuff. It's amazing how perfect of a journalist Kent Brockman is. They just nail everything about that the journalist brain, and yeah, watching these people pretending like they watched like they're acting like it's the worst thing they've ever seen. Kayvon Thibodeau just shrugging at a stupid, meaningless press reporter's question after a game. Like, who cares? Doesn't matter. It's just ridiculous.
I thought the whole thing was so like ridiculously overblown. Like Thibodeau gets a sack, it's big play, like you're amped up,
Yeah.
and like
Saturday started it. He was like that was trash. Like, you're coaching the Colts.
Yeah, man, and like you shouldn't even like be in an NFL job position to begin with, really. And so yeah, just ridiculous.
Just Peyton Manning's caddy
for Nick Foles, but like I don't think that Thibodeau was being malicious. I think he was doing a fun snow angel dance.
Yeah, Jeff Saturday is just like Peyton Manning's turtle from Entourage, basically.
Yeah.
Why are we listening to whatever this guy thinks? Just shut up, Jeff. Shut up, Trey Wingo.
Yes, please. All right, so that I think covers that game. We got Dolphins Jets, which is a little bit funky. So we've got the Jets favored by anywhere between 0.5 point and 1.5 points, depending on which book you're looking at. The Dolphins, obviously, as you can imagine, going to be pretty shorthanded at quarterback for this one. Now, Bridgewater's dinged up, and Tua obviously dealing with his own thing. So he's unlikely to play. And that nothing has come out one way or the other on him since Monday. So you look at the line. The expectation here is that the Dolphins are going to be rolling out third string quarterback again.
Yeah, and I'm hoping all the best for Skylar Thompson, but as far as quarterback threes go, he's not very good. And we're all, of course, talking already about a lowered expectation to start with. So whatever we think is like the worst that can happen at quarterback probably can happen here. Like Skylar Thompson, if he had gone undrafted and didn't get so much as a training camp workout, it wouldn't have surprised anyone. It was, if anything, a little surprising that he got drafted at all. So it's just like unfair to expect him to do well. You just kind of cross your fingers for the guy and hope it's not too bad, because it's just not that much he can do about the situation. And I hate how the season turned out for the Dolphins and Mike McDaniel. I thought it obviously the Tua head injuries thing is nauseating enough, but it's like, man, if they had just done a few things differently, if they had been able to run the ball a little bit more, a little bit better, they might not have had it go this particular way that they did. But hopefully Tua doesn't have any long-term crap from this. It seems like there's some kind of chance that he did, or that he might have kind of like a long-term concern at this point. And I don't know what they're going to do long-term. At this game, I think they're going to lose, though.
And there's a playoff spot on the line, which makes it all the worse for them, because to be that hamstrung and still have a chance, and the Jets are not going to come in there taking it easy. Like, I think they absolutely want to be the ones that end the season for the Dolphins.
Yeah, and the Dolphins' offensive line is probably not that any team is like, oh, we'd love to see Quinnen Williams, but the Dolphins really don't want to see Quinnen Williams. I feel like against that kind of personnel, he could really kind of just take over quarters at a time.
Yeah, because the strength of the Dolphins' offensive line, if you can even call it that, is the tackles. So interior,
Armstead on one foot is the anchor of their unit.
with like one pectoral functioning.
Yeah. Oh man, yeah. I hope. I just hope Skylar Thompson doesn't get any crap for whatever happens.
Yeah, I hope so or hope so as well. Always liked him at K-State. What did you make of the Jets' performance last week out in Seattle, though?
I didn't expect it to go quite that badly for them, but I thought it was a spot where the Seahawks were probably gonna show a little stronger than people were expecting. I thought their losses and Geno Smith's struggles were kind of a combination of bad luck and a tough schedule that you would have predicted some bad luck could maybe happen. And not that the Jets defense, of course, is quite strong. It wasn't like I was writing them off. It was more like the Jets defense, traveling that far maybe couldn't have helped. And also the Seahawks, I think, were kind of just due for a little bit better luck than they had. Especially people were talking about like Geno being a fraud before last week and saying like, oh, now back to being crap Geno again. Oh, brother. And it's like his numbers on the year were sterling. Even after those bad games, his numbers were sterling on the year, like 3-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio, completion percentage well over 70, 7.6, 7.7 yards per attempt. That's almost all pro level production, and people were ready to write him off, which is ridiculous. So as it turned, I think it was just as simple as like Jets had to travel a long ways and faced a good quarterback, and their quarterback was not good enough to, play up in the circumstances. Like Mike White is better than Zach Wilson, but still really limited. And when he doesn't have sort of easy, not necessarily like easy plays, but there's just not that many plays that suit Mike White. And if those looks don't happen, he can be about as bad as anybody.
Right. So I mean,
they can't run. So
yeah, that's a problem. Definitely wish
can't run in this one either. I guess if they blow this game to the Dolphins, not being able to run the ball against the Dolphins will probably have something to do with it.
No, absolutely. And then I guess we can talk more about Seattle. Yeah, I'll table that for now as far as what Seattle might look like for next year. Before we get on over to our next game, which will be Panthers Saints, got a message from our friends over at Monkey Knife Fight. Football is officially back on Monkey Knife Fight with all the NFL action you're looking for. And if college football is more your speed, they've got plenty of that too. Check out Monday's show. I'm going to be broadcasting from Los Angeles, so that'll be fun. Breaking down the game. Take the over on Stetson Bennett, maybe. On Monkey Knife Fight, there's no sharks, no salary caps, and no math. It's just easy to play, easy to win, daily fantasy player props. Join now at monkeyknifefight.com, and you'll get your first game free. Then use promo code RWNFL to get your first deposit matched instantly up to $100. So what are you waiting for? Join Monkey Knife Fight today. All right, Panthers, Saints. Saints, one of the more kind of surprising results of last week going into Philly. I mean, I felt like, I almost felt cockier about like the Gardner Minshew thing working for another week after the Dallas game. It did not.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure what there is to take away from that game other than Eagles kind of had gone most of the year without bad luck showing up all that much, and the Saints just had a couple problematic matchups for them, I guess. And Rashid Shaheed being as good as he is really interesting, and I wish I had known more about the guy as a prospect. He was not on my prospect radar at all. First time I heard of him was when he had that long touchdown when they called him up, whenever that was, week 4 or something.
Mm-hmm.
But every bit of information we've gotten on this guy since then and before then, very limited. Even now, especially his college profile, it's hard to glean meaning from it because he was an overage prospect at a very low level, and he didn't put up like outrageous numbers or anything. But he had something like 7 kick returns for a touchdown. I think he had like 1 or 2 punt returns for a touchdown, and he was vaguely productive. Like he was not unproductive. at this Weber State or some kind of crap like that.
Correct, Weber
So
State.
yeah, Weber. Sorry, guys. So it was a very inconclusive profile, especially because he was hurt in the pre-draft testing and he didn't do any running. So we didn't know that he's as fast as he is, and he probably is like a high 4.3, low 4.4 guy at worst. And his stats with the Saints so far have been so consistently good. Like the peripheral stats with Shaheed are great. That even though he's like a 24-year-old rookie who went undrafted and didn't really do anything that noteworthy at a low level of competition and has no workout data available, we have reason to believe he's one of the more interesting kind of certainly fringe prospects and maybe even prospects generally. It's time to start taking him seriously because he's shown an underneath game in recent weeks after only showing a downfield game initially. So what he's doing is he's showing the ability to produce on both the high difficulty downfield targets and the easier underneath targets, and he shows a lot of yards after the catch ability, if only for his 7 kick returns. So if he can draw targets downfield and capitalize, and if he can draw targets underneath and create yardage after the catch, there's just not really anything holding him back. And getting the better. That was a tough matchup for Bradbury on that one big play. Like Bradbury being 6'1", 220 or whatever, he doesn't want to see a 5'11", 170 fast guy. He wants to see someone more built like him. So that was a really tough matchup for Bradbury. But if Shaheed can make a play like that, then he can make plays against a lot of boundary corners. He's not just like some slot guy. He's not just some gadget guy. He's not just underneath. He's not just a downfield play action guy. He's threatening at all levels, and he provides consistently big yardage after the catch. So I don't know. Him and Olave are just so much more dangerous as a tandem than I expected them to be. Obviously, big Olave fan the whole time, but I figured Shaheed would just be at best kind of like a good gadget guy or something. But it's like those two as a tandem are like legitimately dangerous right now, and I just it's crazy. And the Eagles, found out the hard way, at least on that one big play from Shaheed.
Is Shaheed the second coming of former beer truck driver Michael Lewis?
Well, Michael Lewis, it's easy to forget. Deontay Hardy was Michael Lewis, and Deontay Hardy's been out all year, and he probably would have been a pretty good player for them in like a 20 snap role. But Shaheed's almost like, because he's not even doing that much as a kicker or a punt return. It's like he's just doing really well as a receiver. So I don't know who he would compare to, but some undrafted long shot guy who showed up and just started kind of kicking ass. I don't know who.
Victor Cruz.
Yeah, that's at once like Victor was so productive. It's like Shaheed's got a long way to go to get there, but he might still be like the closest thing in the meantime.
Victor Cruz was such a boss there for a
Oh
little
yeah,
while.
he was awesome.
Big fan. UMass, right?
Yes, yeah. Like him and like Miles Austin were probably the best, past like 10 years or whatever, undrafted guys who were just awesome like that. And Shaheed's not, I don't think he's gonna be like a 1,500-yard guy, but damn, he's doing really well with everything they've given him so far. So it's kind of hard to see why he should stop at any particular point.
Yeah, and he for him to have done this on a team with no real identity at quarterback,
Right.
Imagine if they get a real one.
Yeah, I don't know if there's anything for Michael Thomas to do next year, or I don't know what they're going to do otherwise at receiver. But if they get a real quarterback, I know that it's going to be hard since they traded away all their picks to get Olave. But if they get a decent quarterback, like their offense could be pretty good. So I guess it can't be Sean Payton, but somebody might be more interested in this job than we would have thought at the time of the Olave trade. And love Olave, but obviously that was bad even on first glance.
Yeah, that was a bit much to be given up, but should be a stable part of that offense going forward. And then as far as the Panthers side of this one goes, how do they finish this year off?
I don't know, man. They're so confusing. It was it's too bad that they lost. I mean they aired it out, and initially we're getting really good results from Darnold against a tough defense. And if he hadn't fumbled 3 times, we'd be looking at this and say like, whoa, Darnold's back, or Darnold is here rather for the first time, and they got all these things going right. But now it's like you can't tell if that that was like a real 341-3 kind of game from Darnold. You know, it's the numbers become more empty and meaningless with the particular result that they had. But I really think they should keep trying to open up the offense a little bit. Not 37 attempts, but something between 37 and 22, let's say. And that's just enough to get DJ Moore and Terrace Marshall, I think, fed to their according abilities without overexposing the offense. And you'd still have a bunch left over for those running backs to get carries or whatever. So I think this Panthers offense could be surprisingly decent. It's just I don't know. The Saints have been improving on defense quietly for like 6-8 weeks or something, and it's one thing for Darnold and the Panthers to go against some generic defense, but to go against an actually good one, it's a little harder to see it working. But for whatever it's worth, looks like the spread opened at 5 and New Orleans -5, and now it's down to 3.5. So maybe there's some good case to make for the Panthers, even though I didn't just make it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, you look at the line movement and it's still over that key number of 3. And with so much of the money coming in on New Orleans, it looks like, according to VSiN, I feel like I like the Panthers to cover 3.5. And 3.5, I mean, just asking more than a field goal from the Saints, even after last week, I think is still a bit much, even at home too.
Yeah, I like the Panthers to cover at the very least, because the Saints by design barely even run a game at all. Like they go through so many games. Let me pull up Andy Dalton's snap counts here. Listen to the number of plays in a game that they peeled off from week 9 onward. This is insane. I've never seen anything like this. Like 45, 41, 39, 40. I know Taysom Hill's getting some of these too, but it's like they're running like the Olave, you can see it just as much, and I've talked about this in recent weeks, but he's drawing a target every 5 snaps. He's played like 300 fewer snaps than Garrett Wilson has this year, and still has about as much yardage. And it's like you see people like saying like Garrett Wilson, offensive rookie of the year. Offensive rookie of the year should be Chris Olave. It shouldn't even be close. He's producing at an insane level, and the only reason he doesn't have way more than 980 yards is because he's going through every game playing 34, 28, 35, 39, 27 snaps. And all the guys that he's being compared to are playing like 55, 60. So,
Yep.
yeah, Olave has been just unbelievable. And anyway, the problem with that is if you're running 50 plays by design, you can't get 2 scores ahead. And
No.
you're always at the very least going to have the backdoor cover open, like wide open, and maybe even like open net kind of situation.
Yeah, we liked Olave, rookie of the year, at plus 1,100 coming into the season. Looking good.
Wilson has been awesome, of course. It's just
True.
Olave is better.
Still completely agree with that as well. But both can be good, folks. It is possible.
Yeah.
Let's go Browns Steelers. So the Steelers still have a flickering hope at making the postseason. I'll get into that here in a second. They are 2.5-point favorites against the Browns. Browns looked a little bit more lively last week, obviously going up against Washington. Washington decided to concede ahead of time by benching Taylor
Riverboat
Heineke.
Run.
Yeah, and putting in Carson Wentz. That is a dangerous wager, sir. Let's see how it plays out.
Riverboat Run saying "hit me" on 20.
But also with like the same assuredness of like Austin Powers staying on 8.
Oh man, I forgot about that. That's a great bit too.
I also like to live dangerously.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah.
Oh man, Riverboat Ron, we love him, folks. Anyway, we're talking about the Browns or the Steelers, right?
Yeah.
Well, the Browns have a lot more to work with. I don't know what. I'm more than most people likely to overestimate the Tomlin factor, the Tomlin effect. So I don't want to hammer it too much, but I don't want to pick against Mike Tomlin in games like these. You know, if I'm picking against Mike Tomlin, I want the other team to be reliably scoring a lot of points and kind of like looking right in general. Because if you're going in sloppy, if you're figuring things out against the Steelers, it's going to be more difficult than you expect, at least. So yeah, Browns have a lot more. If I had to pick a side, I'll pick them because Deshaun Watson probably will get it going. He could get it going a little bit more each week. Whatever otherwise might be the case, I think he's going to outplay Kenny Pickett here. So I don't know how the Steelers would do it. The Browns' run defense is bad. Maybe the Steelers run for a bunch, but
I mean, that's what they did last week too. Like the Jalen Warren and Najee Harris ran wild on the Ravens defense. So I mean that could certainly happen again, and that opened the door for a little bit more spacing for Pickett to work with, and he took advantage of it.
Yeah, so it's just I guess I'd stick with the Browns because I can't really imagine both Pickett out playing Watson, even this lesser form of Watson. I can't really believe it, and I'd still take Chubb versus any defense in particular over Najee Harris, Jalen Warren against the Browns one, bad as the Browns run defense is. So I'll go the Browns, but the factor having like a quantifiable way to factor in Mike Tomlin and the way he can affect any given game is difficult, and it's basically like he can just kind of win it. It's not like a very arithmetically increasing like probability thing. It's just like some days if he's just gonna get you.
Yeah, no, I mean he's one of the greats. And again, to recap the Steelers' playoff chances, so they need to win first of all. And then they need the Dolphins and the Patriots to both lose, both of which fairly feasible. So
Dolphins and Patriots?
Yes.
Yeah, those are both. I like them both to lose. Yeah.
So, and all of them will be playing at the same time in that 1 o'clock window on Sunday. So that should create some pretty good intrigue, some good scoreboard watching, and so on. But I mean, it would be wild if the other two conditions are met and then the Browns just spoiled the Steelers' season.
It's possible. I mean, I think I don't know what I think. There's these rumblings now that like D Podesta has something to do with the play calling and the game planning that the Browns do. So I don't know what that means for Stefanski and how much he might have authority wise, culpability wise, but. It seems like he's not a bad coach, It's like I don't like everything that he does, but it's not that often where I think like Stefanski just straight up like lost this game for the Browns. So they have a big talent advantage. I'll take them to win, but it's if there were actually anything on the line for the Browns, they would have a lot of reason for concern because the Steelers are definitely dangerous.
Yeah, so that I have circled it as one of the best games, especially in that 1 o'clock window. But I think on Sunday overall, let's shift on over to the afternoon. We got Giants, Eagles. Eagles. This feels like a little bit of an overcorrection. I mean, Hurts is supposed to be back. The Eagles have something to play for, but they are about 2 touchdown favorites at home against the Giants.
Would that be because the Giants hold something? Like the Giants don't have anything to gain by winning, do they?
I think they might be locked in.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know what kind of guy Dable would be as far as
they are locked in.
As far as the philosophy of like, bye weeks before the playoffs or whatever. He could be one of those guys who's like, no, we're gonna empty the clip. But sorry, that would be my dog barking here.
It's okay. It's a Sublime album.
Okay, sorry. Somebody must be dropping something off. Anyway, I don't know if Dable's going to try to use all their tricks. We know the Eagles are going to use however many tricks they think they need to win. I'm almost skeptical of the 2 scores because you could imagine the Eagles, if they feel like they've got the game, they're not going to try to like run up this. They're not going to like keep showing all their best plays to run up the score. So maybe the Eagles get a comfortable win, but they stop at 10-11, it is hard to imagine them losing. That part I really can't see. I don't think they would lose if the Giants did try their hardest, and I'm kind of, just not sure that they will. Oh no, did the internet monster get you, John? Bear with me, folks. In the past, when this has happened, John has usually messaged me shortly afterward saying, "Hey, John, are you there?" Oh man. Yeah, technical difficulties, Jingle. Just imagine that as necessary. I'm trying to get a hold of John here. Yeah, I believe John is restarting something or other. He may be reloading the page. We got a click. Is that you, John? I'm hearing some clicks. Oh, okay. Now it's just me. Yeah. Sorry, folks. I'll try to. Let's see. What would we have talked about next? Dallas, Washington. Good job, Riverboat Ron, as previously noted. Can't track what Dallas has on the line here. I guess they could get, if the Eagles lose and the 49ers lose, maybe they can get top. So yeah, Dallas is going to show up. Washington will probably show up too. When oh, John, is that you?
I'm here.
Okay, sorry, I started blithering about the Washington Dallas game, as you might
Apologies,
have
folks.
noticed. But yeah, so John, am I right that Dallas could get the first seed if the Eagles lose and the 49ers lose and Dallas wins?
I believe
seems like what it
I believe that scenario.
Okay, so they're going to show up. They do have the later. Well, they're playing at the same time, like you said. So, yeah, Dallas is going to show up. I kind of like Washington to cover here, not just because they benched Carson Wentz, but because, which is really funny, by the way, but also because Washington and Dallas maybe have a more bitter rivalry than any two teams in the NFL, and it just, especially when they're playing in Washington, I feel like that usually shows up. It's like Washington always pulls Dallas down into the mud and just kind of, they love to spoil seasons for them, et cetera, et cetera. So I bet Washington comes out focused despite being generally ridiculous as a team.
Yeah, growing up in the DC area, a lot of Washington fans were friends of mine. No, like they really do hate Dallas a lot. Dallas usually has just inflicted a lot of pain on them, but yeah, no, that rivalry is a real one. And then, as far as Sam Howell goes, how do you kind of apply your prospect analysis of him getting thrown into the mix this late in the season?
Yeah, for evaluation purposes, I don't see it. Like that's part of why I don't get it at all. Why they'd be playing him in this game unless they were starting him, which they're not doing, or they said they're going to start Heineke anyway. Did they back off on that?
I think it is going to
Crap,
be
they
Howell
did back
starting.
off. My bad. Yeah. So yeah, Ron Rivera must have gotten a call from Dan after, or whoever's in charge right now, the emergency manager, when they said they were going to start Heineke. Somebody must have said like, no, we look too stupid. You just benched Heineke. Start the rookie. So yeah, Howell, I don't know, maybe he's better than Heineke. I don't know if that would be right now though. I feel like it's, he is a rookie. He doesn't turn 23 for about a year, it looks like. So Howell is in a difficult spot. Like it's you just gotta have like lower expectations for a rookie than a veteran, even if it's an underwhelming veteran like Heineke. Especially when the Dallas pass rush is what it is. It's easy to imagine this being a difficult spot for the rookie, but I think they're gonna limit the offense. First of all, they're gonna run a lot. We'll see how much they can lean on Brian Robinson in terms of like game script. Like if Dallas gets up 2 scores, I don't think they're going to keep running on first and second down, but they might, and they're definitely going to do it before then, or at least they're going to give a lot of their plays are just going to be like Brian Robinson kind of just going nowhere. So that's also tough on Howell if he's getting like 3rd and 8s, 3rd and 7s, things like that.
Yeah.
Great receivers, I guess. Dallas blows coverages sometimes, so there's something there. And Howell, correct me if I'm wrong, but he did have a pretty good downfield streak, right, at North Carolina.
Yeah, I mean him and De'Ami Brown, who is on the Washington Commanders,
as it were.
So that maybe they could rekindle that. But yeah, I mean, Howell was really impressive player for 3 years at North Carolina, starting as a true freshman and, looking good. I think he pushed Clemson to the brink, like in one of his first couple of games. Obviously, that's ancient history now, and it doesn't apply cleanly to the NFL or anything. But basically, what I'm trying to say is, I wouldn't be surprised if and this isn't like a sterling endorsement of Howell, but I think it's not going to be a train wreck. I think he might actually show some flashes on Sunday. I don't know if it's going to be enough for Washington to win or really even stay all that competitive here, but we could be looking, next week or into the off season at Washington and then, maybe seriously considering him as the starter for next year.
Yeah. He can't be as bad as Wentz. So it's like their baseline function most recently was train wreck. I don't think he can make it any worse than that. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting. He's got some encouraging things in his profile, like you said, some concerning ones. Like basically his completion percentage was a bit low for his yards per attempt, but he's doing it from a young age, like you said, like as a redshirt freshman, he was putting up big numbers. So he almost is kind of a little bit like what if Heineke was just 7 years younger, that's almost what Howell is. So we'll see if he can be a better version of it. It's just a tough spot with a pass rush like that on a team that they're hopefully he gets like fewer than 30 pass attempts, and hopefully they're all like 6 yards or less when he has to throw at the downs and distance, because otherwise Dallas is gonna just kind of tee off on him.
Yeah, so that when we can't really expect Washington to have a totally coherent game plan, so that certainly works against him, or an effective one at the very least. But we'll see. Maybe Scary Terry and Dotson can kind of just like help elevate them.
They're quite good, yeah.
Yeah, love watching them play. Let's go Broncos Chargers. Chargers, pretty big favorites here. Or actually, that's a lie. The Chargers are underdogs on the road against the Broncos.
I'm sorry, is that because they are not trying to win or something?
I suppose not, but if the Ravens win, they could move to the 6th seed.
I don't know if we could say the Broncos are conventionally trying to win either. I mean, they're trying, but one could argue maybe they're not. I don't know. I think, unless Herbert's not playing, is Herbert not playing? I think that's the only way.
Basically, what the line seems to suggest here.
Man, I don't know. I have no idea. I must be missing something. I don't know.
Yeah, there's nothing on RotoWire to indicate that Herbert's not playing.
I'm perplexed.
Flummoxed,
yeah,
even.
I don't. What is that quote? It's like, I don't understand the question and I refuse to answer it or whatever.
Yeah.
And I don't like it, whatever it was, the line.
Whatever it was, fair. I mean, yeah. How do you look at this game now, knowing what the spread is?
Yeah, I mean, I'd still take the Chargers. I just think that the Broncos have a lot of issues. I mean, it was good, of course, to see them let Albert Okwuegbunam play the game. That was good. I know that people like he dropped 2 short passes. It's like part of the problem with Okwuegbunam and getting him a fair shot with the Broncos is that he's not even best used underneath. Like he's one of your fastest players, and what do you do with speed? You have it run down the field, and you see some people like, oh, he's wide open on his touchdown catch. Like, yes, that's what happens when you're bigger and faster than everyone, and you're running down the seam, and they can't keep up with you. You get wide open, and then you make it look quote unquote easy. And it's like, just because Greg Dulcich can't lose anyone in a race doesn't mean he's making a better play. It's like, oh, look at how he had to catch it over 3 guys. That's so cool. Like, I get that that's cool. It's a good play, but it's not a situation you want to be in. It's not the scenario you want to arrange. You want the scenario where your guy's wide open down the seam. So particularly when Russell Wilson was always so dependent on that throw. I mean, that was why I said at the start of the year, like, and I wasn't kidding about it, like, the less they use Okwuegbunam, the worse Russell Wilson's season is going to go, because I know he's not Tyler Lockett, but he's the closest thing they have to Tyler Lockett in that he's the only option they have to create that moonshot down the seam. And you need it to be downfield, you need it to be fast, and you need it to be a good tracker down the seam because Russell Wilson can't see over the middle of the field in the short and the intermediate. He can't see it. Albert Okwuegbunam is 6'5", almost 260. He's going to see him sooner than he sees Greg Dulcich at 6'4", 238 or whatever. And he's also going to see him sooner because he's probably like 10 yards further downfield in the same amount of time because he runs more than 0.2 of a second faster in the 40. So to get Russell Wilson that moonshot at all, it was just Okwuegbunam and it was Hamler. Those were the only two options that could get to that depth that fast before the pass rush gets to Wilson. So that's why Wilson's back there standing around just checking down all year. Like he's bad basically, and it's still the worst trade of all time. But they did make things harder on Wilson by not giving him that moonshot, that moon ball over the seam, and Okwuegbunam can definitely be that. So if they keep going to that, and they get the play action set up, particularly, you can't really defend Okwuegbunam down the seam if you're respecting the play action. He's too fast. He's faster than you, even though he's like 40 pounds heavier than you.
Yeah. So let's see some more Alberto. I'll be buying in next year.
Yeah, and he had one other thing about the drops complaints. Like we already saw him catch really high percentages of his targets the last 2 years, and people complained about the drops even then. It's like, do you understand? People don't have any perspective on this drops thing. Their criticism with Okwuegbunam and dropping passes is very specifically that he's not catching 95% of his targets. Like the drops are the only reason he's not catching like 90+% of his targets, which means he's still, even with the drops, unambiguously productive. So it's like if he's dropping those passes and the numbers aren't piling up, that's fine. But when his catch rate is already pushing 80, let him drop a few passes. Who cares?
Yeah, exactly. Like you're getting greedy, basically at that point. So yeah, that what a waste of a season that could have been pretty sick, as it turns out, from him, and perhaps, like you alluded to, might have changed the Broncos' fortunes a little bit. Maybe had them not be
so. What if
they
lost 3 games specifically because they gave like downfield routes to Eric Saubert, who dropped that one touchdown, the downfield route to Beck, who was too slow to get underneath it. Dulcich missed one because he was too slow. So yeah, it literally got Hackett fired.
Unreal. Just because he doesn't like anchor. Let's go. We got Cards, Niners.
Ugh.
Niners 14-point favorites.
I'll take the
at
Niners,
home.
John.
Yeah, I'll take the Niners with their third string quarterback, who is Mr. Irrelevant. I'll do that.
He's the prince that was promised.
Skylar Thompson could never. But yeah.
Oh my God, they did. They took Skylar Thompson over him, didn't they? Oh wow, that is egregious. Wow, I didn't even put that together. It's egregious that I didn't put it together till now, and it's egregious that they made that pick. That is insane. Wow.
Yeah, whoopsie diddles.
Wow.
Not great. But regardless, this the Cardinals scrappy last week in Atlanta, almost got the win, despite having to go with David Blau. Blau, I think, is going to be starting again this week. Is there any hopes whatsoever when it comes to the Cardinals keeping this one moderately competitive?
No.
Okay, I agree. So that'll be that. And I don't know if DeAndre Hopkins is going to be playing either, so that makes it all the more tricky for those Arizona Cardinals. Let's go Rams, Seahawks. We got the Seahawks 6.5-point favorites at home. Played a close game, first time in Los Angeles, pre-Baker Mayfield. Now the Seahawks obviously have something to play for. In this instance, they are in the playoff hunt still. They need a little bit of help, of course, but what are your thoughts here?
Disappointed in my Rams not making any contest of it with the Chargers. I guess it's like those big Eckler plays were fluky, and once they happened, it was just a wrap at that point. But it really got out of hand in a way that the Chargers never. The Chargers don't get big leads on anybody, It was a weird time.
And if they do, they give them back.
Yeah, weird time for the Rams to completely fall apart. But they don't have any talent, so it would have required like overachievement. It's just Chargers underachieve, and in that game. I think even the Rams did. So they're probably going to bounce back to some measure, and it's going to be the Seahawks' problem to deal with it. So I'm not like I'm a tiny bit worried for the Seahawks to win the game at all. I think they'll win it, but I'm definitely worried about the 6.5 points because the Seahawks don't really play a game that gets big leads either. And if both teams are content to run the ball a bunch, the clock has a way of getting away from you, and you find yourself, it's a one-score game, and there's 6 minutes left, kind of thing. And maybe they hold it, and they keep the 6, 7 or the 7 as it were point lead, but they could also give it up pretty easily, either for field goal, onside kick attempt, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't really like the Seahawks to cover, and they need to take the game seriously, even though the Rams are in a really bad spot.
Yeah, I'm on the Rams to cover this one as well. But yeah, I think again, the hedge, like Seattle to win, but Rams to cover. And let's get to the last game here as we wrap up the regular season. We've got the Lions going to Lambeau, face the Packers. Packers can punch their ticket. This is obviously a huge game. That's why they moved it to the Sunday nighter. How do we see this one shaking out? Right now we're seeing the Packers as 4.5-point favorites.
Yeah, this is a tough one for me because I still don't trust Jared Goff outdoors and in the cold, but he did have that game against the Panthers, which was a first. Maybe that just means I should say, well, now he's that much more certain to revert to type. But it might be that he's got so much help that even he can stay somewhat composed in a Lambeau game at this time of the year. It does seem like a lot, though. That seems like expecting a lot. You'd think that if the Lions made a real game out of this, they'd have to do a lot on the ground, maybe on defense too. That part's tough for me to think through. I don't. This Detroit pass rush, I guess, is getting kind of lively, but they're. I don't know. There's something I don't trust about it, and yet all the same, I don't trust the Packers' offense either. Like they didn't necessarily, like, if they needed to step up last week to beat the Vikings, we don't know that they would have. Like the Vikings just got wrecked in the first 10 minutes on special teams and defense.
That was it.
So that's good for the Packers or whatever, but they're not going to be able to bank on those kinds of Nixon aside. Apparently Nixon's going to return minimum 60 yards every single kickoff now. But aside from him, they can't really bank on the defense, especially stepping up like that. It's just they need Rodgers to actually finally lead a good offense, and Rodgers is still being an idiot. Like he's doing his just ornery diva crap, where it's like he got mad at Dobbs for dropping a pass 2 weeks ago or something. So when Dobbs is getting open last week, he's just not throwing to him. They're trying to get Christian Watson going again, and I get why, but they're basically getting greedy if they try to make a target hog out of him. It's like you got to take selective shots with a guy like that. If you try to just go to him every play, the defense is going to start jamming the hell out of him. And Rodgers, if he's passing up the few open looks that he gets, that's hubris. You got to take that look and just kind of understand that the guy you're throwing to is also a professional, and just because he dropped it last time doesn't mean you shouldn't throw it to him when he's open. Rodgers struggles with things like that, and if the margin of error isn't as big as he thinks, there could be a higher cost than he thinks. So the other thing is, I can't tell how much people are looking at this Detroit line and thinking, oh, well, they don't have anything to play for, so they're going to hold back. I would not believe that for a second. I think Dan Campbell wants this scalp about as much as he wants a playoff spot at all. So I think Detroit goes as hard as they can here.
Yeah, so the Lions, as it stands, have a 10.5% chance of making the postseason. So they're going to need to not only win outright, but they're going to need some chaos, in the form of the Seahawks.
Won't they know before the game? Yeah, so they would know before the game whether they're out, and they're probably going to know that they're out. But yeah, even if they are, there's no way Detroit. That might make them go that much more kamikaze about it somehow.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that honestly might be why the NFL picked this game to be the Sunday night game.
Yeah, if they're mad that they didn't make the playoffs, the Packers should not be like, oh, good. Like,
Yeah.
that's not a helpful thing.
It's like that makes us mad, actually, and we are going to take it to you, and we're going to get the season sweep on y'all.
Yeah, we could finally relax, guys. The Lions can't make the playoffs. Let's celebrate this one early.
Bad idea. You got to come correct against.
I do
Dan
think
Campbell's
they'll win,
boys.
but yeah, it's dangerous.
Yeah, 4.5 points. Give me the Lions. Give me the Lions. Campbell's boys.
I hope the Lions win. I won't lie.
It'd be wild.
Dan Campbell 2023.
I'm all
2024, as it were, I guess.
I'm all in. But I think that is going to wrap it up for us here on the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast. That puts a bow on the regular season. We'll be back. We'll be running this through all the postseason, and this particular podcast, we go all year. So this is nothing new to us. We'll be carrying you through the combine, pro days, the draft, off-season, best ball, draft recap, all that good stuff. So, stick with us here. We're going to be cranking out good content in the off-season and, of course, all throughout the postseason as well. But for Mario Puig, I'm John McKechnie. Thanks for listening to the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast, again, presented by our friends over at No House Advantage.
Try RotoWire today, free for 10 days. Get our premium tools, rankings, analysis, and breaking news alerts. No credit card required. Go to rotowire.com/